According to legend, the first sighting of the Americas by Europeans was in 986 CE when Bjarni, after being blown off course on his way to Greenland, spotted forested mountains on his western horizon. Bjarni then told Leif Erikson of his findings, who soon found himself blown off course in a similar way. Leif decided to investigate these promising lands and found 2 shipwrecked men here. If this is true, these 2 men were the first recorded Europeans on the American continent. After Leif rescued them, he returned to Greenland to mount an expedition back to these lands. Following Bjarni's route in reverse, Leif first landed at a rocky and barren place that he gave the name Helluland, meaning flat rock land, which was most likely Baffin Island. Then he set out again, this time finding a forested land which he named Myrkland, which is thought to be modern-day Labrador. Lastly, he traveled 2 more days by boat down the coast to a land with fair weather that was covered in vines and grapes. For this land, Leif gave the name Vinland. Despite these being the first names ever given to the Americas by Europeans, none of them are still in use to this day. So why not? Well, while knowledge of these lands existed among the Vikings, word didn't spread much further than that and eventually faded from memory. It wasn't until 1492, almost 500 years later, that Christopher Columbus made his famed expedition, and the European world at large was made aware of this land's existence. By this time, everyone had forgotten Leif Erikson and the names he had given the lands, and accepted Columbus as the true discoverer of the New World, other than, all the millions of people that lived there already. But it wasn't even his name that was eventually attributed to the newly discovered lands. So where did the name America come from? Well, the first recorded use of America is actually very well established and known. It was on April 25th, 1507, that the German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller, while making this map, the Universalis Cosmographia, attributed the name America to what's now the continent of South America, while North America was labeled Terra Incognita, or unknown lands. This map was also the first map to ever show the continents of North and South America not as a part of Asia, and that's important too, remember that. Though Waldseemüller never gave his reason for attributing the land as America, an accompanying book to his map written by his collaborator Matthias Ringman, titled Cosmographiae Introductio, did offer an explanation. Inside, Ringman wrote, "I do not see what right anyone would have to object to calling this part after Americus, who discovered it, and who is a man of intelligence, American, that is, the land of Americus, or America." So who was this Americus? Well, Americus Vespucius was the Latinization of the name of another famed explorer and cartographer of the time, Amerigo Vespucci. It was Vespucci who first postulated that these lands were not the far eastern parts of the continent of Asia, but were in fact their own separate landmass. In the third of 4 voyages made to South America between 1497 and 1504, in which Vespucci and company observed and mapped the continent's eastern coast, Vespucci made the observation that the lands they were exploring were far too large and vastly different to what was known about Asia. In a letter, he said these lands must instead be a mundus novus, or a new world, a 4th continent to join Europe, Africa, and Asia. So, while it was Columbus who discovered the lands west of Europe, in a sense, it was Vespucci who discovered a quote-unquote new world. Waldseemüller himself published some of these letters in his Cosmographiae Introductio, so it's easily believed that Waldseemüller read these letters, where Vespucci would use the Latin version of his own name to sound cooler, Americus Vespucius, and then use the female version of that name to better align with the names of other continents for the use of his map. Thus, the name America was crafted. Or that's the most popular story anyway. Another theory places the origin of America in Nicaragua, specifically in these mountains, which the natives called the Ameryk Mountains. The original name for the mountains is thought to be Amerystiquique, which got shortened over time as the language decayed. Although this name originally came from a near-extinct tribe without good record of their language, a similar word from the nearby Mayans, Ameryke, translates into country of the wind, which is believed to be the meaning of the name. It was in the vicinity of these mountains that Columbus landed on his 4th voyage to the Americas and interacted with the natives, most likely the Rama people. It's suggested that he and his men picked up the name and used it orally upon returning to Europe, where it could have reached Waldseemüller. This theory is preferred by some for multiple reasons. First, many believe it to be more fitting that the native people got to name the land, but also, many criticize Waldseemüller for taking the mantle of naming lands upon himself, which was typically a privilege reserved only for the explorer or the monarch they served under, and not for the mere cartographer who drew their maps. Second, the first theory breaks a well-known tradition which verges on law among cartographers around the naming of places, where only the first names of royal people are to be used to name lands, while it's the last name of all common people like Vespucci which is used. That's why the land named after Louis de Bourbon, the King of France, is Louisiana and not something like Bourbonia, while the land named after Christopher Columbus is Columbia and not something like Christopherana. As a famed cartographer, Waldseemüller would have been well aware of these rules, so it doesn't make sense that he would have broken them, but giving the land a name provided by the natives fixes this issue. Then there's one last theory surrounding the Venetian explorer John Cabot, who was the first European to find the shores of North America since Leif Erikson, when he made landfall in Newfoundland in 1497. Cabot sailed under the commission of England and received a pension from King Henry VII. The man responsible for giving this money to Cabot was the High Sheriff of Bristol, a man named Richard Ameryk. It's been suggested that Cabot was well known for being free with gifts and could have named the whole land he had discovered after Richard Ameryk as a show of gratitude for getting paid. A manuscript from the late 15th century has been quoted showing the name America to already have been in use by the year 1497, 10 years before Waldseemüller first used it in his map. Sadly, this original manuscript was destroyed in an 1860 fire, and we may never know if this was true. This is the least supported of the theories, but Waldseemüller never gave a reason for why he named it America, and unless we find a way to bring him back to life, we may never know what inspired him. Thanks for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And let me know which theory you prefer in the comments. I'll be back next week with another video. Thanks.